How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ayin Gimel, Daf 73 of Masechta Yevamis. Just kidding. Masechta Kiddushin. But it may as well be Masechta Yevamis. Friends, people think that Seder Noshim starts with Masechta Yevamis. It does, but it also ends with Masechta Yevamis. Perek Asar Yuchsin. Friends, what's with the Perek of Asar Yuchsin? I learned Kiddushin 13 years ago or something. And I don't remember Asar Yuchsin being so hard, but Asar Yuchsin is Yevamis. It's Yevamis. Alright. We're going to start in Daf Ayin Beis with Beis, 3 lines from the bottom all the way to the end of the line. Tana Rabbanan, the Rabbi start Ger no simam zeres divrei Rabbi Yossi. Classic Yevamis machlokas. That a ger, a proselyte can marry a mamzeres. The Rabbi Yossi, it's Rabbi Yossi's opinion, because his opinion is kal gerim lo ikre kol. That when it says that a mamzeres is not allowed to yovel b'kohol Hashem, right? Is that what it says? Lo yovel mamzer b'kohol Hashem. Gam derasir lo yovel lo b'kohol Hashem. So when it says kahal, so it says kal gerim lo ikre kol. So therefore, kahal doesn't refer to gerim, to proselytes. So a mamzer can marry a proselyte according to Rabbi Yossi. Reb Yehuda Omer ger lo yisam mamzeres, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says nisht. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees and he says fakert. He says that a proselyte cannot marry a mamzeres, because when it says that a mamzer / mamzeres cannot marry in the kahal, that includes the proselytes. Echad ger, echad evid, meshuchur v'cholol, whether it be a proselyte, whether it be a freed evid, whether it be a cholol, mutarim b'kohenes, they are permitted to marry a kohenes, right? So while a kohen would not be able to marry a ger, evid, meshuchur, cholol, but a kohenes can. My time with Rabbi Yossi, Yaakov Rabbi Yossi says that a proselyte can marry a mamzeres. Well, chamisha kahal eksive, it says kahal 5 times, I guess in the context of, gabi azhar is psule yuchsin, says Rashi. In the context of problematic yuchsin situations. So one to say that a mamzer cannot marry a kohen. One call is to say that a mamzer cannot marry a Levi. A third call is to say that a mamzer cannot marry a Yisrael. V'chad lemishrei mamzer b'shtuki, v'chad lemishrei shtuki b'Yisrael. And then 4 and 5 are to teach that a mamzer is allowed to marry a shtuki. You could tell me what a shtuki is? A shtuki, we said, was a fellow who knows who his mother is, but doesn't know who his father is. Knows who his mother is, doesn't know who his father is. So there's a chance that he's a mamzer. Who knows, right? Who knows? Maybe he's a mamzer. So we don't know who the father. We'd have to know who the father is to know exactly what this fellow's status is. So we say that a mamzer is allowed to marry a shtuki, because a mamzer is not allowed to marry a vadai Yisrael, but this is not a vadai Yisrael. It's a Sofik Yisrael, Sofik mamzer. So a mamzer is allowed to marry a shtuki. And also to teach that a Yisrael is allowed to marry a shtuki. That a Yisrael is just prohibited from marrying a vadai mamzer, but a Sofik mamzer, a shtuki, who we can't know for sure, so a Yisrael can marry a shtuki. This is midoraisa. So we're going to see soon that midorabanan, though we say that a Yisrael should not marry a shtuki, but midoraisa, Yisrael can marry a shtuki, a mamzer can marry a shtuki. Shtukis have options. Shtukis have options. Okay. Midoraisa at least. So now, okay. So kalgerim lo ikre kahal, and therefore kalgerim lo ikre kahal, meaning there are 5 kahals, and they're all used up. Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, mamzer to shtuki, Yisrael to shtuki. That's all 5, and therefore all 5 are used up, and we don't, and none of them are to exclude a ger from marrying a mamzer. So ger is allowed to marry a mamzer, whereas Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, kehanim v'levim mechad kol nafke. Rabbi Yehuda, however, says that Kohanim and Leviim ultimately are all from the same tribe, from the tribe of Levi. So therefore, you only need one kahal for both Kohanim and for Leviim. So isolate. So therefore, you have a leftover kahal, an unused kahal, the kal gerim, to say that gerim are considered the kahal, and therefore mamzerim are not allowed to marry gerim according to Rabbi Yehuda. V'ba'isema, alternatively, hochinami trei kahal einenu. Alternatively, you can say that Kohanim and Levim need their own kahal. So one kahal is for Kohanim, one kahal is for Levim. But mamzer b'shtuki b'Yisrael michad kahal nafka. But you only need one kahal, both for the fact that a mamzer is allowed to marry a shtuki, and that a Yisrael is allowed to marry a shtuki. So that's now from one kahal. So therefore you have a extra kahal to teach that a ger is considered part of the kahal, and a mamzer cannot marry a ger according to Rabbi Yehuda. Now the pasuk says right now. So let's back up one line. So mamzer b'shtuki b'Yisrael michad kahal nafka. Right. So we learn out mamzer from shtuki and shtuki b'Yisrael. Mamzer b'shtuki and shtuki b'Yisrael from one kahal, and now it continues. Lo yavo mamzer b'kahal Hashem. That when the pasuk says that a mamzer cannot go into the kahal of God, mamzer vadai hu delo yavo, ha mamzer safik yavo, that a Yisrael cannot marry a definite mamzer, but he can marry a safik mamzer, a shtuki. Bikal vadai hu delo yavo, and a mamzer is not allowed to marry a kahal vadai ha bikal safik yavo, but he is allowed to marry a shtuki. So Yisrael is allowed to marry a shtuki, a mamzer is allowed to marry a shtuki. I like to say the word shtuki. I feel like what was another word that I like to say? I feel like there was another word at one point that I like to say a lot as well, but I can't remember. Was it even the word shtuki? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it was a different word. Shtuki is a funny word. Almost. It's an almost funny word. It doesn't quite pass the funny threshold, but it's close. It's almost there. Okay, alternatively, these also need two kahals. So you have one call for Kohanim and Levim. You have one call for Kohanim, one call for Levim, one call for mamzer to shtuki, another call for Yisrael to shtuki. Right, and then you need the final one to teach Yisrael. So you have, again, one call for Kohanim, one call for Levim, one call for Yisraelim, one call for mamzer to shtuki, and one call for Yisrael to shtuki. So how do I know then, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that gerim are considered part of the call and cannot marry a mamzer? Well, hakol chuka achas lochem v'loger hagar. So the pasuk says hakol, so the word call, chuka achas lochem v'lager hagar. So we're comparing kahal and to ger. So we're saying that the ger is part of the call, and therefore a mamzer cannot marry a ger according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi. Now Rabbi Yossi argues though and says you can't compare kahal to ger in that pasuk because chuka achas hifsikoin, because it says hakahal, then it says chuka achas lochem, and then it says vilager. So there's an interruption, and therefore you can't make a connection between ger and kahal. Fine. Okay. Now we had said at the end of the brisa that we started with echod ger. V'echod eved meshucher, v'chalal, whether it be a proselyte, whether it be a freed eved, whether it be a chalal, mutarim b'kohenes are permitted to marry a kohenes. They can't, if they're a girl, they cannot marry a kohen, but boys can marry koheneses. Misei le'lerav, this supports Rav Amar Vidamar Rav, lo huzaru ksheris linosei livsulim, that ksheris, kohanuses, are not prohibited from, i.e. they're permitted to marry psulim, right? People who would not be able to marry a kohen, a kohenes can marry them. So, for example, a chalala cannot marry a kohen, but a chalal can marry a kohenes. Very beautiful. Darsh Reb Zera b'machoza. Reb Zera darshaned in machoza. Ger muter b'mamzeres, that a ger, a proselyte, is permitted to marry a mamzeres. Ragmu kuliamu besrogayu, and they all took their esrogim, and they pelted him with their esrogim. They did not approve of that halacha. Amar Rava says to Reb Zera, you got to be more diplomatic than that. Miika dedarish milsa kiyai beduchta d'shchiche giyure. what were you thinking? Why would you say that in a place where there are a lot of proselytes? Why would why would you say, don't worry, proselytes, you're allowed to marry mamzerim? That's not going to make them feel, how's it going to make them feel? You're allowed, this is basically how we think of you. You can marry mamzerim. What does that say? So even though it's true, right? Meaning if we're passing like Rabbi Yossi, right? The halacha Rabbi Yossi me chaverov, nimuko imo. So we're passing like Rabbi Zera that a ger can marry a mamzeres, but Rava says to Rabbi Zera, that was not very diplomatic. Don't get up and say that in front of a bunch of gerim. Don't advertise it as such. Rava Darsh Rav Mechoza, rather Rava Darshan ger muter b'kohenes. A ger is permitted to marry a kohenes. Now that sounds like a better pill to swallow. A ger is allowed to marry kohenes. Tanu b'shiroi, the mamish paraded him through the streets of the town. Hip hip hooray! Who's the best guy in the world? Rava. And they were made a mamish a celebrity. So Hadar Darshlu, but then he said to them, ger muter b'mamzeres. Then at that point, after he kind of sweetened it with the gerim can marry koheneses, he then says, and a ger can also marry mamzeres. Amrule, they said to him, afsidta the kamaisa, we no longer are parading you around the town. We're not happy with you anymore. We revoke our initial enthusiasm. Amrulu, to which Rava says to them, wait, people. Wait, I'm saying, you have you have options. You can marry Yisraels, you can marry Koheneses, you can marry Mamzereses, you can marry whoever you want. You have options. So Rava was a real diplomatic fellow. Right? Rava was the rabbi in Mechoza. I guess Reb Zera was a shtickle rookie, I guess. Reb Zera was older than Rava. But anyways, Reb Zera gets in and he just gets straight to the point. You can marry a mamzer. And Rava says, hey, you gotta know how to make the people feel good. Gotta know how to work the crowd. First you say that a ger can marry a kohenes, and then when they get upset that they can marry a mamzer, you say, hey, look, it's taka a good thing. You can marry whoever you want. You have options. You have to know how to deliver things in ways that the people will be happy about. V'yochsa, the halacha is ger muter b'kohenes. A ger is allowed to marry kohenes, muter b'mamzeres, and can also marry mamzeres, muter b'kohenes. A ger can marry kohenes, lo huzaru ksheris li'nosei livsulim, because kohaneses are allowed to marry psulim, people who would not be allowed to marry a kohen. They would be able to marry a kohenes, meaning girls that can't marry kohanim, boys can marry koheneses. Umuter b'mamzeres Rabbi Yossi, and a proselyte can also marry a mamzeres like Rabbi Yossi. Fine. Let's go weiter. Eluin shtuki kol shemakir. Okay, so we said that a shtuki is a fellow who knows who his mother is but doesn't know who his father is. Amar Rave, so now it says Rave, Dvartere shtuki kosher. So as we just said earlier, that midoraisa Yisrael can marry a shtuki. Because Yisrael just can't marry a vade mamzer, but a safek mamzer is okay. So midoraisa shtuki kosher. Midoraisa you can marry a shtuki. My taima, how come? Well, rov ksherim etzla umiut psulim etzla. Well, remember, a shtuki is a fellow who knows who his mother is, but doesn't know who his father is. We don't know who the father is. So the shaila is, well, since we don't know who the father is, how do we know? Maybe he's a mamzer. Maybe this fellow is a mamzer. Maybe this fellow is a mamzer. But we say, look, this fellow's mother, who he knows who she is not a married woman. So most people, right? She's a pnuya. So most people are ksherim to her, right? The chances are that this child is kosher. Right, again, rov psulim ksherim etzla. Most people would be kosher, partners to her. Umiut psulim, only muted, like arayas and stuff would be psulim etzla. The azle inu legaba, and if the people of the world went to her to have bia and make a baby, so called the parish meruba parish. Well, anybody who's coming to her is coming from the majority, from the world, from the outside world, and most people in the outside world would be kosher to her. So we assume that this fellow who they had a baby together, was a kosher fellow. My Omartem, what are you going to say? But maybe Duma Ozli Ligabayu, maybe she went to them, Havle Kavua, and therefore he, I don't know, it's Kavua, it's a funny thing, yeah. Called the parish, move a parish, and call Kavua, Kmechza, Mechza Dami. But anyways, whenever something is established, so it's considered 50 on 50, by 50, so 50-50, so if she goes to him, well then she's going to him and like in his place, which I guess we're saying is like Kavua, is fixed, okay? And therefore that makes it called Kavua, Kmechza, Mechza Dami, which now makes it a 50-50. That maybe, we have to treat it as 50-50 chance he's a mamzer, but still, whenever you have something fixed, so we treat it as 50-50. The Torah says, Lo yavo mamzer, so it says that a mamzer can't marry a Yisrael, but mamzer vadai hu to lo yavo, but only a mamzer vadai cannot marry Yisrael. Hamamzer safek yavo b'kol, but a safek mamzer can marry into the congregation, b'kol vadai, into a definite Yisrael. Wait, what? Because vade u'delo yavo, right? What? Are we doing both sides? I don't know what I'm doing again. Wait, what? Let's back up a line. Hatorah lo yavo mamzer. So mamzer vade u'delo yavo. Ha mamzer safek yavo. Period. So a definite mamzer cannot marry a Yisrael, but a safek mamzer, like a shtuki, can marry Israel, and b'kol vadai hu dilo yavo, I'm so confused. Wait, what? Mamzer vadai hu dilo yavo, ha mamzer suffix yavo. Okay, so Yisrael can marry a suffix mamzer, and b'kol vadai hu dilo yavo, and a vadai mamzer is not allowed to marry a vadai Yisrael, ha b'kol suffix yavo, but can marry a suffix Yisrael, kilu a shtuki. Meaning, what it was saying is that first we said that a Yisrael can marry a shtuki, a suffix mamzer, and then we said a mamzer can marry a suffix mamzer. Okay? So, wow, okay, fine. Yeah, this is Yavamis. What do you want me to tell you? Yavamis gets confusing, but it's okay. It's going to get a little bit more confusing in a second. But, anyways, so we're saying that, look, Mida Oraise, my brain, I lost my brain now. Mida Oraise, a Yisrael can marry a shtuki. Yisrael can marry a shtuki because the shtuki, he knows who his mother is, he doesn't know who his father is. Chances are his father was kosher, and therefore even if it's suffix, so we say that Yisrael is allowed to marry a suffix mamzer, just can't marry a definite mamzer. So why do we say that a Yisrael cannot marry a shtuki? Gezerah shemayisa achoso me'av. So says Rave, well, the reason why we say midirabanan that Yisrael cannot marry a shtuki is because we're concerned that, well, since we don't know who his father is, he might end up marrying his sister. We don't know. Maybe this girl's father is actually his father. We don't know. We don't know whose father is. So, ela me'ata shtuki shtukis lo yisa shemayisa achoso me'aviv. But then we say, well, if we're saying that a shtuki can't marry a Yisraelis because we're concerned that maybe they're brother and sister, well, why do we say that a shtuki can marry a shtukis? Shouldn't we have the same concern that maybe the same father that impregnated his mother also impregnated her mother, and they are also siblings? So kol ki ayane mizanu va'azle. So we say, nah, because we don't assume that this guy is going to do this so many times. He had one baby with somebody who he wasn't married to. The chances are he's not gonna do it nachamo. So they wouldn't create two shtuki situations. So that's why that's allowed. So now, bas shtukis lo yisa. Okay, now the Gemara says, okay, but maybe, okay, don't break your brains over here. We're just gonna do it quick. Pull off the band-aid. So a shtuki shouldn't be able to marry the daughter of a shtukis, shema yisa achoso me'aviv, because maybe the daughter of the shtukis is actually his sister. I guess maybe the shtukis married his father, whatever it is. Ella lo shchicha, hachinami lo shchicha, to which the Gemara says, yeah, but we say that a shtuki is allowed to marry the daughter of a shtukis, and we're not concerned that maybe he's marrying his sister, so we say, yeah, because it's not common. So here also let's say that it's not common, meaning, I don't know, there's a little bit of noise outside, but I don't think anything major. But anyways, here also. So why don't we say the same argument? I mean, the question is, Mida Oraisa Yisraelis is allowed to marry a Shtuki. Mida Oraisa Yisraelis is allowed to marry a Shtuki. We're saying Mida Rabbanan not. The question is, how come? Ultimately, we're saying it's not a common. Right? We said Rava wanted to say because maybe he'll end up marrying his sister. But just like the daughter of the Shtukis, it would be uncommon that he would end up marrying his sisters. So also Yisraelis, it's uncommon that he would end up marrying his sisters. Ella. Maila also biyuchsin. Rather, says the Gemara, no, it's simply that when it comes to lineage, we are extra stringent, and therefore we say, look, don't marry a shtuki just because we don't know. We don't know for sure what his status is. What's all that noise outside? 1 second. Jeez, I think it's barely anything. I'm probably hearing like some kind of vibration more than anything else. Okay, let's go weiter. Now. Vamaravin says, Ravat Vatora Asufi kosher. Mida Oraisa, a Yisraelis can marry in a Sufi. And a Sufi is somebody who knows neither his father nor his mother. He has no clue his lineage. So kosher Mida Oraisa, a Yisraelis can marry in a Sufi. My time, how come? Well, Eishes Ish, Bibailatola. Well, if the concern is that maybe he's a mamzer because we don't know who his father and mother is, and we're concerned that maybe his mother had an affair, and he was born from an affair, so he's a mamzer. But if that's the case, that she was a married woman, she would just say that she got pregnant from her husband. So we're not concerned that this abandoned baby came from a married woman, because if she was married, then she would just say that she got pregnant with her husband. So my Ika, okay, so then who do we think are his parents? So miut arusos umiut shalchu b'alei medinasiyam. Well, one option would be that you can have a betrothed woman, right? If she's betrothed, so then she won't say that it's from her husband because they're not married yet. Alternatively, a married woman whose husband is away someplace, so also she won't say that it's from him. So that would be, and in those cases, the child would be a mamzer, but at the same time, came in the ika pnuya vikanami demachmas raivon. But then again, it could be that there was an unmarried woman who that the baby was born to an unmarried woman, in which case she's not the child is not a mamzer, but also the mother couldn't, I guess, say that who it came from, so she abandoned the baby, or maybe it was a time of famine where there was simply no food to sustain the baby, so the parents abandoned the baby. So in those cases, the child would not be a mamzer. So therefore, have a palga ufalga. So therefore, we don't know. It could be from a arusa. It could be from a woman whose husband is away, in which case the child would be a mamzer, but it also could be from a pnuya, or during a time of famine, or because there's no food. So then in which case it would not be a mamzer. So we don't know. It's 50-50. The Torah says, Lo yavo mamzer b'kal Hashem, that a mamzer cannot marry into the congregation. Mamzer vadai hu lo yavo, a definite mamzer cannot marry Yisrael. Mamzer safek yavo b'kal, but a safek mamzer can marry a Yisraelis. Vad lo yavo b'kal vadai hu lo yavo, and he cannot marry a kal vadai hu b'kal safek yavo, but a mamzer can marry a safek mamzer. So we see, as we said earlier, that mida oraisa, a Yisraelis can marry a safek mamzer, including in a Sufi. Umatam amru a Sufi pasul. So why do we say that in a Sufi is pasul and an Yisraelis cannot marry in a Sufi? Well, maybe he'll end up marrying his sister from his father. So ella me'ata a Sufis lo yisa. But if that's the case, then an Asufi also shouldn't be able to marry an Asufis. Shamisa achoso ben me'aviv ben me'imo. Well, maybe he'll end up marrying his sister, whether from the father, whether from the mother, because nobody knows, right? Both of them are Asufis, so they don't know who their fathers are, their mothers are. So kolani shadi ve'asle. So we're saying, what, are so many people abandoning their babies? Okay, but bas Asufi lo yisa, but then you shouldn't be able to marry the daughter of an Asufi, shema yisa achoso, maybe it'll be his sister, elo lo shchiach. Rather, he can marry the daughter of an Asufi because it's uncommon. Ochinami lo shchiach. So here also I'll say it's not common, right? Meaning the chances of a Yisraelis who marries an Asufi ending up marrying her brother is pretty low chances. So rather, the reason why Yisraelis cannot marry an Asufi is simply because we have a special criteria. We hold up to a higher pedestal when it comes to lineage. It's mamash like we're back in Masechta Yevamis. Amar Rave bar Ravuna Mitzol Mohu. So if you find an abandoned baby, but the abandoned baby has a bris milah, Ein bo mishum asufi, so it is we don't treat the baby as a suffix mamzer, as an asufi, as a suffix mamzer. Rather, we assume that the child was born kosher, and that's why the parents took care of the bris milah. Mishalte ad dmoya, if the bones of the baby were straightened out, Ein bo mishum asufi, so then the child is not in a sufi, right? The baby wasn't born and immediately abandoned. It was like taken care of properly after birth. Shayif mishcha, if it was rubbed with oil, umelo kuchla, or had some stuff around its eyes, eye stuffy arounders, like powders, makeup, eye stuff arounder stuff. Rami chumre, if there were like knots, I don't know, like tied knots, that's like a thing. Tali piska, Utli kmiya, if you had some kind of amulet with some written incantation of sorts or some herbs in it. Ein bo mishum asufi, in these cases also the child would not be considered an asufi, a suffix mamzer, rather it would be considered a kosher baby. Tali bedikle, if the baby was hanging in from a palm tree, I guess in like a basket or something. Imati lechaya, well, if a wild animal would be able to reach it, yesh bo mishum asufi, then you do have to be concerned about a sufi that it was just abandoned. That maybe it's a suffix mamzer. Im lab ein bo mishum asufi. But if a wild animal cannot reach it, then we don't have to be concerned about a sufi. It's not an asufi. Zardis smicha lemaser. If a sorb tree is close to the city, yesh bo mishum asufi, then you have to be concerned about asufis, because apparently demons hang out in sorb trees that are close to the city. Im lab ein bo mishum asufi. Wait, what's the imlav? What if it's I guess in a different tree, or I guess maybe even if it's not so close to the city, then there's no issue about a sufi. Beknishta smichta lamasa, if there is a synagogue that is close to the city but outside of it. Apparently the synagogues were outside of the town. I wonder why. If there are a lot of people there and the child was found there, ein bo mishum asufi, you don't have to be concerned about an asufi. Vimlav, but if there are not people there, it's just kind of abandoned. So yesh bo mishum asufi, you have to be concerned about an asufi. Amar Mema says, Mema hypera de sufle, some kind of pit of date pits. They would like put date pits there for animals to eat. Yesh bo mishum asufi, if the baby's found there, then you have to be concerned about a sufi. Charifta de naira, if it's in the middle of the river, ein bo mishum asufi, there's no concern about a sufi because the mother put it there so that people will find it in the middle of the river, like other people on the river. Pishrei, yesh bo mishum asufi, but if it's on like the side of the river, kind of like where, I don't know, apparently like the snow melts and then there's like extra water, kind of like swampy stuff, so then it's considered abandoned. We have to be concerned about a sufi. See, there was Rishus Harabim, if the baby's in the side of the Rishus Harabim, kind of a protected area, ein bo mishum asufi, we're not concerned about a sufi, Rishus Harabim. But if it's in the middle of the public domain, yesh bo mishum asufi. Amar Rava says, Rava, vishnei raivon, but if it's during a famine, ein bo mishum asufi. We're not concerned about a sufi. Hadrava aheya. What's Rava referring to when he says if it's a famine? If you're talking about if he finds if the baby is found in Rishus Harabim, we're saying that if it's during a famine, then we're not concerned about an asufi. Well, ID dishnei raivon ktala le. What is the fact that it's a time of famine have to do with anything? Just because it's a time of famine, why would a mother who has a kosher baby put him in the middle of the Rishus Harabim where it's dangerous? But let's see the Rishus Harabim. Well, rather it's the side of Rishus Harabim. But my area shnei ravon, afilu below shnei ravon. But then what's the difference if it's a famine or not? Even if it wasn't a famine, if it's the baby is found in the side of Rishus Harabim where it's protected, so it would not be an asufi. Elo ki itmar derava aha da amar Rav Yehuda amar Rav Abba amar Yehuda bar Zabdei amar Rav. Rather, Rava is talking when he talks about the famine years, talking about that which Rav Yehuda amar Rav Abba amar Rav Yehuda bar Zabdei amar Rav says called zman shebashuk of vimon emanim olav, that if if the baby is found in the market, and immediately his father and mother come and say, this is our baby, so they are believed. Nesaf min ashuk, but once already the baby is taken from the market and is considered to be an asufi, ein emanam olav, they are no longer believed about the baby. My time outcome, Rava says, Rava also olav shem asufi. Once already it's kind of gone out, the name, right? It's assumed that this baby is an asufi, they can no longer claim that it's theirs. Says Rava, but if it's during a famine, even if the baby's been collected from the market, the father and mother are still believed to say that it's their baby. There are three examples where people are believed immediately. These are them: a sufi, chaya, a midwife, and a woman who can exempt her friends. What does that mean? So Asufi Adamaran, so the Asufi is that which we just said, right? If the parents immediately say that it's their baby, they're believed. Chaya, a midwife, Titania is a midwife is believed to say, this is the one that came out first, this is the Bechor. This one came out second. When is she believed? As long as she hasn't left the room and then come back. Once she leaves the room, well then she's no longer believed to say which one came out first and which came out second. Rabbi Eliezer says, no, only if she hasn't moved from her position, then she is believed. If not, then if she has moved from her position, she's no longer believed. My benai, what's the nafkamina between leaving the room and moving from her position? Well, what if she just turns her head? According to the Tanakama, it would be okay because she hasn't left the room. According to Rabbi Eliezer, well, she moved, so she wouldn't be believed anymore. Poteres chavosel mahi. What's the example of a woman who could exempt her colleagues? Titanan is we learn in the Mishnah Masechta Nida. Shalosh nashim shayu yishenus b'mita achas. If you have three women who are sleeping in the same bed, like kind of apparently like on top of each other, v'nimtza dam tachas achas man, and blood was found under one of them, kulan tmeos, so you have to assume that all of them are tmeos because we don't know who it came from, that they're nidas. Bodka achas man, but if one of them immediately checked herself with a cloth, v'nimtzeis tmea, and it turns out that she is a nida, he tmea v'chulim taharos, then she is tmea and the others are taharos. Amar Rav Chizda says, Rav Chizda shebodka atzma kshir veses, as long as she immediately checked herself to determine that. Friends, that was Daf Ein Gimel of Masechta Kiddushin. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.